Hello everyone, and welcome to our first week of English 120. This week we're going to be talking about the following topics. I'm going to give you an introduction to class. Hopefully you guys have already introduced yourselves in the introductory discussion forum. We're going to talk briefly about journaling and active reading, and you're going to do your first active reading activity. And we're going to talk a lot about plagiarism because it's a big thing we're going to be learning about in this class. This week, you're going to be, the reading's pretty light just to get you up to speed. You're going to start by reading Stephen King's On Writing, his essay called On Writing, which is in pages 88 through 92 in the Conscious Reader. And whenever I refer to the Conscious Reader in anything in this class, you'll just see CR, little abbreviation. You're also going to read The Bedford Researcher, just a few pages in chapter 7, pages 120 to 123, which is on plagiarism. So just a reminder, your required texts for this class are the first two texts featured here. You need to get the Conscious Reader and the Bedford Researcher. They're both at the bookstore, Napa bookstore, and please make sure you have them. You'll need them right away. The Valley of the Moon is it's optional to purchase. I know some of you have read it before because I've had you in my classes before, but we are going to be doing a extra credit. There will be an extra credit opportunity related to the Valley of the Moon. So please, if you're interested in that, get a copy of it, or you can also get the Valley of the Moon on your Kindle for free. You can download it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is something that's very important to this class. It's half of what you're going to be learning in this class is how to actively read and how to read critically. So everything you read in this class, you're going to be reading actively. So what that means is before you even begin reading something, you're going to be thinking about it. So before you begin reading Stephen King's On Writing, I want you to think about the title. What does the title mean? On writing, what do you think the topic's going to be like? So the title actually tells you that it's probably going to be about writing, right? So that's something you can do before you even begin reading. It kind of gives you an idea of what the text is going to be about. I want you to think about who wrote the text and if you know anything about the author. In the case of Stephen King, you most likely have heard of Stephen King before. He's a popular writer, and it might give you an idea that maybe the genre of this text would be, if I hadn't told you, would be fiction, right? Because he writes a lot of fiction. But if you take a quick look at it, it's easy to tell that it's nonfiction. And that's the third thing you're going to look at is what genre is this, is the text that you're reading. So, and you also want to look at what year it was published. In this case, if you look inside our reader, you can tell that Stephen King's On Writing was published in the year 2000. Now it's 2013, so some things have changed, and we'll talk a little bit about how things change after, within 13 years, there's references he makes, and there's been changes in technology that'll affect the way that you read it. So it's really a good idea to keep all of that in mind before you begin reading. Then, while you're reading, I want you to do the following things. I want you to mark up your page. So don't think twice about using a pen or a pencil all over your text. It should be very, very filled with text. I want you to circle any words that aren't familiar to you, and I want you to look them up if they're not familiar to you. I want you to mark any words or passages that make you think about things that you've already read, things you've read before in the past, that remind you of things that you've read. I want you to mark words or passages that bring to mind personal experiences. Maybe you've experienced something similar to what Stephen King is talking about in his essay. I want you to mark passages that you agree with or you disagree with, and state in the margin, why do you agree or disagree? Write it down. If there's any part in the text that's hard for you to understand, mark it and come back to it. If there's something that you really like a passage that you think is a great quotation or a main point, underline it, and notate that it's important. Mark parts of the text that highlight what the main theme is, what the main point is of what he's talking about. And while you're reading, ask questions. Ask Stephen King questions about what he's writing about, okay? And if he uses any literary elements such as like a metaphor or a simile, highlight it and mention it, okay? Any text that you read for this class, I want you to do this. There's a handout in this week's content called What is Active Reading? I want you to print that out and I want you to use it every single time you read a text for this class. It will help you engage with the text. Another thing that we're going to be doing in this class is journaling. And each week, what you read beginning next week, not this week, but beginning next week, you will have a journal blog that you'll need to respond to. And if you haven't actively read the text, your journal will, it'll be really hard for you to write your journal post. And your journal is worth quite a bit of your grade. So please take your discussions and your journals very seriously. All right, so after you've actively read Stephen King, I want you to log on and participate in our first discussion forum, besides our introductions, on Stephen King's essay on writing. So there's a series of questions here, and I want you to find, to answer these questions and use evidence from the text, that means quotations from the text, to support what you're saying. You're going to post one post for yourself that answers these questions, and then you're going to read the post of your peers and respond to at least 3 of their posts. Each week, whenever we have a discussion forum, this is how you're going to participate. So this week, we're also going to be talking a little bit about what plagiarism is. Plagiarism is something that is really serious at the college level. As you guys know, plagiarism is when you copy somebody else's ideas or texts. There's 2 different types of plagiarism. There's unintentional plagiarism, and then there's intentional plagiarism. Unintentional plagiarism is when you, like maybe you go to the library, you're doing research, you write down a quotation, and you forget to put quotes around it, and then when you're writing your paper later, you forget that it was a quotation, you just kind of stick it in your paper. That's still plagiarism. Even though you didn't mean to, it's still plagiarism. Or if you paraphrase something, that means when you paraphrase something is when you restate it in your own words. If you paraphrase a quotation and your paraphrase is almost exactly the same as a quotation, that's also plagiarism. Or if you don't clearly distinguish between your ideas and the ideas that come from your sources, that's also plagiarism. If you neglect to list the source of a paraphrase, quotation, or summary in your text, or in your works cited page, your works cited page is where you're going to list all of the sources that you use in any paper that you write for this class. That's also plagiarism. Before I go on to talk about intentional plagiarism, I do want to mention that please pay attention to these slides because I know that it can be a little boring to hear about plagiarism. I get it, and especially when it's just a voice coming at you from your computer. But I am going to be giving a test on plagiarism at the end of this, so please pay attention. It's important you know what plagiarism is and what it isn't. So intentional plagiarism is when you do patchwork writing. That's when you just take a bunch of quotes and stick them together, or again a bunch of pieces of other people's papers and patchwork them together into your own paper. That's intentionally plagiarizing, and it's a serious offense. Or if you just create fake citations, you just pretend like you got a quotation, you make it up. That's plagiarism. If you just copy or closely paraphrase extended passages from somebody else's work, that's plagiarism. Or if you copy an entire document, or you pay for a document and say it's your own, that's plagiarism. So why should we learn about plagiarism? So there's two main reasons. The first one is because you want to do your best work, and you want it to be your work, right? The whole point of this class is to learn how to write, right? And you're not going to learn that if you're just taking somebody else's work and saying it's your own. And also because I care about this very much, and I really want you guys to learn in this class. I'm concerned as a teacher about plagiarism because if you plagiarize, you're not learning what I'm here to teach you. So please take this seriously and do not plagiarize in this class. So there's 3 ways to cite source material. And the way that you don't plagiarize is you cite your sources. So there's three ways to do it. You can quote it. That means you put a quotation from another person's it's called an in-text citation. You take somebody else's quotation and you put it in quotations inside of your own paper. You can paraphrase it, so you can take a passage from the source material and then put it into your own words and put it into your paper, but you still cite who said it, whose idea it was in your paper, or you can summarize it, and that's when you talk about, you put the main ideas in your own words, including like the main points. This is like a whole paper's ideas, right? In your own words, that you refer to inside of your paper. We're going to be practicing quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing extensively in this class, so don't worry. But I just want you to have an overview of how you're going to be doing citations in this class. So quickly, citation 101. Whenever you use a citation, and that a citation, remember, is a quote, a paraphrase, or a summary, you're going to introduce the source material. So you're going to alert the readers to say, hey, guess what? I'm going to be putting a quote in here, okay? And we're gonna work on how to do this. But you're going to say, you're going to introduce the information. You're going to say that you're no longer going to be speaking in your own voice. Anytime you stick in a quotation, a paraphrase, or a summary, you'll always introduce it. So you'll say, as Stephen King says in On Writing, and then you insert the quotation, and then after the quotation, you say how that makes your point, right? You sandwich it between an introduction and your own words afterwards that say how it makes your point. Citing means identifying for the reader the sources of the quotation, the paraphrase, or the summary. There are two main types of citations. There's a parenthetical in-text citation, and then there's notes, either footnotes or endnotes. In this class, we will be doing in-text citations. Citations direct readers to the works cited page. That's at the end of your essay, and that's where you list all the references in MLA format. On that page, and I have an example of what a citation, what a works cited page entry looks like at the bottom of this page. You're going to include the last name, first name of the author, the title of the book, the editor or translator of the book, where the book was published, the publisher, and the date it was published. So there's 8 ways to avoid plagiarism. I want you guys to review these on your own, and I will be testing you on all of this information after you review these slides. And remember, you can always download the slides. You don't have to just listen to this one. So I hope that you guys have learned a lot about plagiarism and you're ready to participate in your discussion on Stephen King. As always, if you have any questions, please just let me know. I look forward to seeing you online.